Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of our Industry Explorers live stream. Today is a very special day, as you can see, because I've got two, not one, but two, double the fun, double the trouble guests with me tonight. And let me go ahead and just introduce them to you. We've got Tessa White, who is an HR expert with 20 plus years of experience leading people strategies. She is a frequent guest on career navigation and contributor to many publications, including Forbes, Entrepreneur, and the Wall Street Journal. She currently runs The Job Doctor, a career navigation and HR consulting practice dedicated to increasing employee engagement in the workplace. Welcome, Tessa. We also have Lindsey Bryant, who is an entertainment technician with 20 plus years of experience. Her previous roles in entertainment include arts educator, IATSE Local 504 board member, and union steward, and the Disneyland Resort Technical Services team lead. She's taught resume workshops at local and state Thespian Festivals and now leverages these skills to help fellow entertainment professionals who have been laid off due to the pandemic. Ladies, welcome. How are you guys tonight?
Oh, we're great.
I am super excited to have you guys with me. We are here to merge the world of live entertainment and corporate human resources. And we're going to talk about job seeker challenges, repairing skills gaps. We're going to talk about communicating how you stand out. And it's going to prove to be a very interesting conversation. We've got two very different perspectives, and I think we're all going to learn something very valuable tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's great to see you guys. And just remember, you can always ask our experts live or just share your thoughts with us. Share your thoughts and leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this. Now let's get started. Now, I'm going to do something a little different tonight. I'm going to ask you guys to give me an example of how networking is like dating. Let's start with Lindsey.
Oh, that's a hard one because I've been out of the dating pool for a long time now. But honestly, I think networking is like dating in that you really get a feel not for the people around you, but also for yourself, for your own strengths. Like for me, I've been doing the same thing for 15 years. For me to start networking right now, I'm going to get to know things about myself that maybe weren't present or didn't exist 15 years ago. I mean, I'm not the same person I was before I met my husband. I'm not the same person I was in the career field 15 years ago. So yeah, I think it's about getting to know yourself and getting to know others.
I think that's fabulous. Tessa.
Oh, that's a fun question. I also haven't dated for a long time, but I would say, it's a lot like dating in that you really have networking is an interesting thing. Networking, you never know what's going to pay off. You never know the person that's going to make a difference or the person that's going to connect you where you need to be connected. And I think dating's similar. We tend to make harsh judgments, but if we allow ourselves to be open to lots of different kinds of people and getting to know lots of different personalities, we're going to find that you just never know how those dots are going to get connected later on.
Oh, totally agree. And on that, when you're dating, it's all about respecting the person. It's all about having open communication because that's really what's going to work. And then in the end, if it doesn't work out, well, you may have a friend later on in life, no harm, no foul, no worries. Same thing with networking. If you're networking with someone and you ask them if there's a job opportunity and it just ends up not working out, no harm, no foul. They may have an opportunity for you later down the road, or they may know someone who does have a job opportunity for you. So respect and open communication. It works in business and it works in relationships. So on that, let's get into it. I want to talk about repairing skills gaps. Now, this is on Tessa's website, which let me go ahead and flash that down here. It is at drtessawhite.com because she is the job doctor. On your website, you describe repairing skills gaps as expanding any missing skill sets to create a more robust resume. Are these skill sets that an individual already has, but who now needs to communicate that on their resume? Or is this about, here's my job description. I need to get this certificate or a certification in order to fill these skill gaps. So what do you mean by that?
Well, it's both. It's both for most people who have any kind of a gap in their resume. The first thing to repair a skill gap is you need to make sure that if you're moving from one industry to another, you have to speak the language. Entertainment has its own lingo, and so does software developers, and so does project management. So anything you do has its own lingo, and you need to replace words that maybe you used in the industry you've been in with words that make more sense to the new industry. So let's say you're in entertainment, and you were managing, let's say that you were managing a community theater. The words that you would use are more like operations manager. That's what a business hears, and that's how your resume is going to get picked up if you apply for a job and go through the system. And so you need to just learn the lingo. The other thing is most people who are making big pivots also need to augment their resume with some new skill sets, and that's fortunately very easy to do nowadays. And some people say that's just a cheap parlor trick to go in and get a quick certification, but it actually isn't. There's so many places that you can go now to look at and pick up a new skill set that helps you be more current. Put it on your resume, and if you have any understanding how any ATS works, which is the system that gets to see your resume, you have to understand that keywords have to be picked up. And so if there are gaps, that's one way to do it. It's one way to get through to a human being, but it's also a way to show that you're learning, you're growing, and that you're aware that you've got some gaps.
So speaking of lingo, Lindsey, can you share with us some very popular live entertainment lingo that we use in our industry?
Oh my goodness. Well, the ones that I see over and over again are things like works well under pressure, which, don't get me wrong, I think we can phrase these all better, but ones that I see and I think are super applicable, works well under pressure, high pressure environment, collaboration, teamwork is a huge one. Things like that. Things like able to be self-motivated, self-starter, works alone, works with a team. That's what you're looking for, right?
I mean, I think that is absolutely great to apply to your resume as you're shifting from entertainment to a different industry, or even if you're just still in the entertainment industry looking for the next step in your career. I was looking more for like production management, stage manager.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. So stage technician, costume technician, costume designer, scenic designer, lighting programmer, monitor mixer. Let's see. Atmosphere show mixer, you could say box pusher, although that's not really a very flattering term.
I wouldn't use that one.
I mean, it's true. I wouldn't put it on my resume. I think there's way better ways of expressing it, but
asset manager.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned stage manager, you mentioned assistant stage manager, production manager, road crew, things like that.
So I recently discovered a new podcast. It's called Out of the Arts, and they're new and they've got great content already. One of them being like 9 things to put on your resume if you're going from production manager or stage manager to project manager, or if you're going from performer to customer service. So, give these guys, check out the Out of the Arts podcast. Great content there. So I would love to know from Lindsey, can you give an example of a functional resume as it relates to your career?
As it relates to my career as a stage technician?
Sure.
Absolutely. Okay. So in terms of a functional resume, that's more of a skills-based resume. There's a couple different types of resumes, and I don't know how much time you want me to spend on this, but chronological resume is the typical resume we see where it's literally your jobs listed out, and typically people tend to list the tasks that they accomplish at those jobs. A functional resume or a skills-based resume isn't going to focus so much on where you worked. It's going to focus more on what your skills are and what you did. Now, this is great if you've got things like volunteer work, if you've got a lot of different jobs, if you're perhaps a lot of stage technicians who work out of unions work as dispatched workers. So they tend to have multiple different employers. And I think the great thing about functional resumes for stage technicians and people in the arts, especially if you're looking to transition, is that you can really pick and choose those skills that make you amazing at things in the arts, but also will make you amazing at things that aren't in the arts. So for example, I could say, yes, as a stage technician, I'm great at sweeping and mopping floors. I'm great at running shows. I'm great at fixing scenery. But if I want to transition into the world of management or more of a white collar job or project management, I'm going to focus on the fact that I am highly organized. I'm going to focus on the fact that I've accomplished 1,000 shows, working with others in a very tight collaborative environment. I'm going to focus on the fact that I have done a lot of scheduling and a lot of schedule planning and schedule management. So you really want to focus more on those skills as opposed to just tasks. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And honestly, when I first heard of a functional resume, I absolutely loved it. However, when I look at the commentary on LinkedIn from other HR recruiters, they hate functional resumes. So Tessa, I would love to know, do you prefer chronological, functional, or combination resumes? And can you share insight as to why?
Yeah, you're not going to like my answer. I like chronological resumes overall because it allows me to see really quickly if somebody has a big gap in their employment, and it helps me spot problems. So I strongly prefer the chronological. Now, I'm skeptical of functional, and for good reason. Functional resumes, at least in a corporate world, usually are trying to hide gaps in employment or, great big skills gaps for somebody. But if you have worked in the entertainment industry or you've been a gig worker even, and then I think it's appropriate to move from a chronological resume into a functional resume. And I still think there's ways to make that functional resume less, more trustworthy, for a corporate person. And that is the way that you frame what you've done, to the degree that you can tell me less what you did and more how you did it, what set you apart, and what made you better at doing that thing. Because Lindsay's right, you've got to go from using words like, I swept or did this, to I was highly organized. And so you do have to change the way that you speak about yourself a little bit if you move to the functional resume.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you do a chronological resume, how do you address gaps in employment?
It's hard. And that's probably why employers like them, because you can spot them really quickly. The best way to address it, I think, is to, under each component of your chronological history, I like to hear why you moved from that job into the next one. And it gives me at least a starting point to question somebody as to why. And I tell people they should be pretty honest in that. I think for the most part, people that are interviewing can smell dishonesty a mile away. And so, just be straightforward about it.
So here's someone who is watching on Facebook says, I have a 9-month gap in my resume, but never had a problem because I could explain it. So would it be helpful to, how you have the job titles or places of work that are highlighted in bold? Would it be helpful to put in bold gap year or work gap or something, and then underneath bullet point what it was that you were doing?
I wouldn't highlight it myself, because you're using your real estate and Lindsay may disagree, but I think you're using your resume and trying to give the most real estate to the areas of strength. And so I wouldn't want to put a gap as my area of strength, but I would want to make note of it in between jobs in smaller print, italicized font, just to say, I had a gap. Now, me personally, I had a gap as well. I had to be home for about 1.5 years for some health issues of one of my children. And I simply put in between the two jobs, small little star, had a gap for this reason, and it has not gotten in my way.
So we had a good question come in. If you went to a job for 4 months, then boomeranged back to your former job, should you leave that off your resume?
I will answer what I think, but I'm interested in Lindsay's take on this too.
Go ahead, yeah.
I would leave it off, personally.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
I would probably just, if I went back to the other job and I was still there, I would probably just show that without going into those details. That's me. But Lindsey, what would you do?
Yeah, I would agree. To your previous point, I do agree that I would not put a gap in a resume, because that is absolutely valuable real estate. However, in the interest of transparency, because honesty is always the best policy, I might touch on that in my cover letter, and I've suggested that to folks.
Very good.
Especially now, I'm going to say it, COVID, like a lot of us are going to have a big gap, especially if we got laid off. And there's nothing wrong with basically saying, hey, I'm looking for a job right now. I have a 9-month gap because of COVID. And frankly, there were no entertainment jobs. I don't think any employer is going to fault you for that. And you know what? If they have a problem with that, at least you got it right out of the way early, and you're not like well down the line before they happen to ask that question. So maybe put it in your intro, put it in your cover letter. Don't waste time on your resume, but be willing to explain it.
I want it there. I just want it in small print.
Yeah.
Print. And you're right. 2020, we get a pass, thankfully. And probably for a good share of 2021, we're going to get a pass on those gaps, which is good for people who have them.
Another good question came in from Roger. He says, I'm 52 years old with 26 years in the gig economy with an average of 16 employers a year. I understand that. It sounds like you do a lot of freelance work. Please advise, how do I keep this to a one-page resume? Lindsey, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, I would definitely say that in this case, selected work history. I mean, there's not everything on there is going to be something that maybe you need to put forward or discuss. So instead of saying, your entire work history, I would pick selected work history, and I would pick the top things that you are most proud of that show your accomplishments. Because remember, we're not listing tasks that we do at a job. We want to highlight on our accomplishments. So pick the things you think best represent you. And, don't be afraid, again, to use that cover letter and touch on the fact that maybe you are a gig worker in the gig economy, and you've worked for a variety of different employers and had a good relationship with all of them. So by all means, use that as leverage to really show how well you work for a multitude of employers, but touch on the ones that you think really show you off the best.
Excellent answer. Tessa, do you want to comment on that?
I would say, I think there's two approaches. You either do a functional resume, which I think is very appropriate for a gig worker and would be understood that you're not trying to hide anything, or I would go to the more chronological resume. But what I would do is list consultant, what year to what year, which gives you the nice, 26 years at the same place, and then move down and highlight some of the biggest companies, best projects, the claims to fame that you have over that period of time. So it looks like one job, but then you go down and you chronologically list some of those highlights. So I think Lindsey and I are saying very similar things.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned, put in consultant. And some people say, I see that on LinkedIn all the time, is people say, freelance rigger or consultant or this, that, or, some people put something funny like owner at rigging me or something. But I mean, I wouldn't advise that necessarily on your resume, but saying that you were a consultant and, listing your claims to fame in the 26 years that you have with experience in live entertainment, I think that is such a great piece of advice. And so here's a very interesting thing about the culture of a gig economy and the culture of entertainment professionals. It is not uncommon for people to take large vacations. And where I think we see this a lot is if someone is on tour and they are working pretty much every single day or most days out of the week, and they're working, 60 or 80 plus hours doing this tour. And this tour lasts for a year or a year and a half, and then finally the tour is finally done. Now they're going to take a 6-month vacation. I mean, that is not uncommon to see. So how should someone approach something like that when it's very much been part of their lifestyle?
I think people do understand, especially in the entertainment industry, that that's what it looks like. And I think that there are ways on your resume to address it, less like a corporate blue collar resume. Like you say, you're either an entertainer or lead in this, and then you can go through and share. I really like this claim to fame idea. I'm seeing it lots more in resumes, and just share the 4 or 5 or 6 major accomplishments, the biggest things you've done. And then you can list below that the list of companies or periods of time that those productions happened. And I don't think you're going to see people hold it against. And I think the gig worker is the new norm. I think we're going to see a complete shift in resumes and in how we look at each other and skills, because I think it's going to become something that we all do.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting trend or evolution to witness. So someone on Facebook, possibly the same person, says, I had a hard time explaining my freelance TV experience. I wish I would have known this years back. So I'm really glad that this live stream is helping you guys out. Please keep giving us your questions and your comments. It's very much appreciated. We're here for you tonight. So Tessa, I was watching your YouTube channel, and let's see. I got to go to my banners here. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Job Doctor on YouTube. Tessa is planning on releasing a ton of videos pretty soon. And I was watching some short and sweet ones in preparation for this. And Tessa, my question for you is, how does using a word cloud generator help job seekers build their resume?
Oh my gosh, this is the best trick in the whole world, and you've got to know how to use it. So especially if you're making a pivot, find the job that you want, put the job description through a word cloud generator. You can Google them, they're everywhere, they're free, and it will pull out the words that are most used in the job description. Then take your resume and put it through the word cloud generator and see what words stick out. You should do this every single time you apply for a job, and then you tweak your resume so it has more of the key words. First, it will give you clues as to, like we talked about, the lingo that you need to use, and then you have to figure out how to back into that lingo. So if it's operations or if it's project management, if those are the words showing up, you're going to want to use more of those words. The reason you do this is because when you apply for a job through an ATS, it has artificial intelligence built in, and it will rank your resume and put it on the recruiter's desk, not physically, but it'll show them the top picks and the top matches based on how close the words match the job description. So you can get ranked higher, and you can get seen by a person just by using the correct terminology. So it's a very important first step, and run it through every single time you apply for a job.
Well, that's an excellent word of advice. Let's move on to talking about overcoming job seeker challenges. Lindsey, are you still open for work? Are you still in the job market?
Yeah, I'm actually being furloughed in 3 days. So
No.
I am going to, I guess, take a while and see what I want to do,
So this next question is for you. How are you overcoming obstacles that are present when someone's trying to pivot industries? And I ask you this question because I know you recently got your project management certification.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. I got another bachelor's degree in project management. I think for me, honestly, if we're being brutally honest, a lot of it is the imposter syndrome. And it's not something like I can talk to somebody else and pick out all the amazing things about that person and like honestly find them like a great match for something. And then when it comes to me, it all feels fake, right? That's super common. So I know I'm not the only person that feels that way. It's especially common amongst women. So for the rest of you out there who have that, I feel you. It's not something we have to figure out a way to move past, honestly. So a lot of that is, figuring out what I do well. Sometimes I tell people to ask others what they do well when they sit there and say, I have nothing to offer, especially I have nothing to offer if I move into a different industry. Like, hey, I'm a great stagehand, but what would somebody else want of me? And I said, go ask 5 of your coworkers and come back to me and you tell me what your 3 superpowers are. And they will come back with skills and they're like, oh, I had no idea that people think I'm good at that. And it's like, well, yeah, you just had a bunch of different people tell you were good at that. So let's start building your resume and start looking at some of your skills and some of the possible, career pivots around that. Obviously, right now is a really weird time. There are a ton of people for every job that's out there. So it's a little intimidating. And that's just going to be present for a while. If I can survive this, I can survive anything.
What are your 3 superpowers?
Okay, my 3 superpowers are I seem to work really well with a lot of different types of personalities. So I would say establishing a collaborative environment, working with challenging and diverse personalities. Siobhan, I know we've talked about this in some of the people that we work with at Disney. We have some brilliant people, and you know that. But we also have some people that are so brilliant, they're really hard to deal with. So I feel like my time there has really allowed me to kind of just get along with most folks for the most part. I'm sure there's people that don't like me, and that's okay. But for the most part, I really like people I work with, and I'd like to think that it goes both ways. But so definitely establishing those collaborative environments, working with challenging people, and I'd say communication. Although super awkward to be on a podcast. So let's just say it right there. I'm much better live than I am on screen.
Oh, I didn't think you were super awkward at all. Like, I think someone should hire you right now. I can't imagine anybody not liking you either. You're so professional, and you know what you're doing, and you are very stoic in high pressure situations. I mean, I've had the pleasure of being on the team helping with the Haunted Mansion overlay just one day. But even in that one day, I was like, wow, this girl, like, I want to be this girl. She's amazing. Yeah. So Tessa, what are your 3 superpowers?
Oh man, I did not see that coming. I did not know you were going to ask that for me. I would say I have always been able to take really complicated topics and condense them down for people, which helped me work with executives really well, because I'm able to take these, very hard things and talk about them in quick, actionable bites. I would say another superpower I have is I'm very calm, even when something goes completely awry. In fact, the worse it is, the more calm I get. It's a really strange skill set I have. So that has helped me get through some really rough things. And I would say I have never been afraid of talking to anybody at any level, whether it's a CEO of a company or, the temp worker that just came in. I view everybody as my friend, and I've always been able to get along and talk to anyone, any level.
What's really crazy about your second superpower? The more stressful it is, the more calm you are. I'm the same way. I'm going to share this story. Okay. I'm sorry if it grosses people out, but I'm going to share this story. We had a clogged toilet. Our pipes are really old, and I could not fix it. And then my boyfriend's like, you got to snake the toilet. And I'm like, that's disgusting. I hate toilets. I hate touching them. I hate looking at them. I'm not going to snake a toilet. After hearing about how much it would cost to have someone come out and snake it for you, even if there were no other problems, I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it. But I was disgusted, right? Meanwhile, I'm the same girl who is working 80 feet high on beams, on I-beams, and some guy a few bays over is throwing up on himself because, I don't know, he was dehydrated or he had ribs that morning. I don't even know, but he's hurling, and I'm like, here, I'll come help you. No problem. 80 feet in the air in my harness and fall protection. Yeah, no big deal. But I can't unclog my toilet. Like, that's one of my weirder stories. I've shared it publicly several times, so I have no shame anymore. All right. So next question about overcoming job seeker challenges. The process of job seeking has really evolved with social media platforms. A previous guest of ours stressed the importance of networking even when you aren't actively seeking a job. Something we haven't covered on Industry Explorers yet is the power of social groups. What was the last group on any platform that you've joined, and what tips do you have on group etiquette? Lindsay, let's start with you.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I actually just joined a social media group today that has nothing to do with job seeking. It is for a specific type of hammock called a bridge hammock. So it's people that like to go camping in hammocks. I like to backpack and I like to camp, and I'm very outdoorsy. So that would be why. But yeah, I guess any of that could at any time lead to something career-wise. I think nowadays it's really important to practice just mutual respect online in these groups. We all know that politics has gotten dragged so deep into things, but honestly, when I'm thinking about like if I want to sew a hammock, if I want to go camping, I'm not really worried about politics in the world. And if I have, if I want to ask a question online, or if somebody else asks a question and I know an answer to, and maybe I think initially like, oh, this isn't a great question. Like, that's not their problem. That's my problem. So no matter what my opinion of that person is, they deserve respect, right? They're seeking help because I'm going to be in that same position. So, just treat people the way you'd want to be treated. And I think that'll come back around. A lot of times you can just smooth out issues that way. And that goes to work in a social media group, talking about hammocks, talking about, your favorite dog treat. I don't even care. So whatever it is, just keep it civil. It's the golden rule.
Absolutely. Always keep it civil. As I mentioned earlier, networking is just like dating, and you're going to be respectful and have open communication on a date. And that's what's going to make a good relationship work. That's what's going to make a networking work for you. And you're absolutely right. Just because you're talking about hammocks and backpacking and outdoorsy activities in these groups, it doesn't mean that you're not going to meet someone who's going to have an opportunity for you later down the road. So I've recently been, I guess, going through the halls of Clubhouse and joining different rooms. And my recent insight as far as like etiquette goes, people are always asking the question, well, what value do you bring to the group? How can you bring value? Bring value. And I think you can bring value just by listening. Like, there's nothing that says you have to say anything in order to bring value to a group. You're bringing value by listening to what someone has to say, or by listening to the conversation that other people are having. And with Industry Explorers, I'm learning so much about industries that I never considered before. And something that helps me is just listening into those conversations and picking up on the jargon, and just picking up on like the common questions that arise in these groups and in these conversations. So that's my 2 cents on that. Tessa, how about you? What was the last social group that you joined, and what insights do you have on etiquette?
Well, Clubhouse is the bomb. That is my favorite new place. And I've noticed there's a lot of entertainment people. There's a lot of new conversations around entertainment and working coming up. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing. At least my feed is filling up with that. So I love Clubhouse. I think it's a very advanced way to mentor. It's like LinkedIn, except people are talking all the time, and it's a lot easier to connect, and it's more collaborative in terms of getting help around different things. A lot easier than LinkedIn. The things that I would say is don't ask people to mentor you just right off the bat. You don't ask strangers to mentor you. That's just an etiquette thing that, as an executive, many years, I've had so many younger people go, will you be my mentor? Don't ask that. That's too big of a question. If you really want the help of people who have been there and done that, or ahead of you in your journey, ask for small asks and be very respectful of time. Asking for somebody to share 5 to 10 minutes of wisdom or help or answering a specific question is a really smart thing to do. And you can do that via LinkedIn. And I've found great success in asking total strangers to help, but don't ask for something too big. And I also think that just something I've learned through time is, as you get to know these people, whether it's Clubhouse, LinkedIn, or any other network, if you learn what those people care about, there will be opportunities for you to help them with their causes. And as you do so, you'll find that they will help you with yours when the time comes. So those are my tips.
Tessa is a very avid fly fisher. Her fish are bigger than yours. So if you want to connect with her on something, go learn how to fly fish.
Honestly, the employer, I almost left an employer once, and they bought me a fly rod. And it was, $600. And I stayed an extra year because of a fly rod. They could have given me a huge bonus, but I wouldn't have stayed. But the fly rod got me.
Oh my gosh. I wonder what the ROI on that was.
I know, it's great.
Hopefully pretty big. Awesome. So let's see. What else do I got? What tips do you have for optimizing time that you spend mingling on these groups? Lindsay.
Oh my goodness. For career specific?
Sure.
I really like to go and, okay, maybe this isn't interactive, but I actually like to stalk people's LinkedIn and see what they've done, what led them to their current position. That fascinates me, because a lot of times people take very non-traditional paths to places. And I find that it opens my eyes a lot to, like, hey, if I have a friend that wants to go into working with drones, I'll go look at other people who work in the drone industry and see, like, where do they come from? Oh, they took this weird convoluted path and it's made them better for it. So I really like to find out people's backgrounds and some of that is interacting and chatting with them, figuring out what got them to where they are, and really learning about them and their history and sometimes how they follow their passions.
Yeah, that's excellent. So funny enough, one of the people who I worked with at the Disneyland Resort was a stage technician, but now he owns a company it's a drone company, and they deliver like medical packages to people. I know he's based out of San Diego, but so he's based out of San Diego, but I'm not sure how large his reach is at this point. But like, that's such an incredible pivot. Now, this person also has several different kinds of degrees. So he's very well educated. In talking with other people about their pivots, it's been so interesting. Someone is going from rigging to animation for video games. That's such an interesting pivot. And there's so many resources online that can help you expand your skills or really refine your skills. There's things like Skillshare. There's, I think, lynda.com. There's LinkedIn. There's courses on LinkedIn. There's all kinds of resources. Khan Academy is always a good one. So who else? I just want to highlight on some people that I've met recently. I recently did an interview with Beth, and she was an audio engineer, production manager, and now she is a training and communications coordinator for the state of Tennessee Department of Revenue. Like, incredible, really, really interesting pivots, really interesting paths that people take in order to get to where, they are currently today. So Lindsey, welcome back.
My apologies. It looked like my internet booted me off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Tessa, my next question for you is, do recruiters really read cover letters? And is that a tool that career changers should implement when pivoting industries?
Tricky question. Cover letters are often read if there's a personal relationship and that resume is, delivered through a personal email, then they'll be read. If you're applying online through an ATS, and especially if you submit that cover letter as a separate attachment, which many things are asking you to do, it doesn't get read as often. So I tell people, cover letters have a purpose. Cover letters are supposed to create the emotional attachment, the emotional hook, was why somebody would want to hire you, where a resume is more of the skills hook. And so I think there's a place for them. But if you are applying at a company where you don't have somebody's personal email address, somebody's going to yell at me for doing this. Lindsey going to yell at me. Make it a part of your PDF for your resume, your PDF file, because then it goes through the ATS differently, and they will get seen because it becomes part of the resume file, as opposed to, and you can put it on I would put it on the back of the PDF as opposed to the front. And when the manager prints it out or the recruiter prints it out, they're going to see it. So it just increases your odds of getting seen. So Lindsey, are you mad at me for telling people to do that?
No, it's brilliant. I love it because, yeah, like you said, most of the time the cover letters are really only getting read if you have, if you have somebody that, a friend of mine gave me your name and they're expecting your resume, you're going to use that cover letter as a really big in. But like you said, when you're applying for jobs, when you don't have any connections, the cover letter might get read if they like your resume and they're looking for more, but it's just not probably going to happen.
And the same is true for letters of recommendation. You really want to if you want to get in and you do have a skills gap, I tell people to put the cover letter, which is the creative hook, which, creatives ought to love that they can write a creative hook there. And then you get your letter of recommendation and put it in the PDF packet of your resume. And that also ensures that your letter of recommendation will be seen. Whereas the ATS, I know, is asking you to attach it separately. But if somebody sees two candidates and they're similar and one of them has a creative cover letter and it has a really great letter of recommendation, you just got a couple of stars in your column without even interviewing, or so why not do that? Why would you not? So I tell people to do that.
What makes an impactful creative cover letter?
It, first and foremost, really needs to capture the creativity and the attention of someone. So where a resume is more of a skills based, you're looking for keywords. If I were, let's say that I were somebody that was applying for an account manager job, I would say something like, I'm a Swiss Army knife. Not only are you going to get, what makes me different is you're going to get somebody who's really great with people. Plus you're going to get somebody who has proven that I can sell or bring, customers in. And you're going to say, I'm like a unicorn. You can create the right, interesting words around a cover letter that capture somebody's attention, and then they're liable to read it. And that's something they're not going to pick up in a resume. You're not going to say I'm a Swiss Army knife or I'm a unicorn, but it is something that will capture your attention in a cover letter.
See, for the theatrical folk that are tuning in, multi-tool. Just kidding. We had a nice, interesting comment come in when I was talking about someone that I know who is going from rigging to 3D animation. Michael Max Morley says, makes sense thinking in 3D, which is absolutely true. And I think that especially when you come from technical theater, or even if you come from the artistic side or the production side of entertainment, there's a lot of different ways that you can say like go from saying that you've done one thing and then kind of sexing it up, if you will. Okay, which this is a good segue into our next section, which is communicating how you stand out, or as I just said, sexing it up, right? Sexing up your resume. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's easy enough to describe what your job roles were when you're using day-to-day action verbs like, oh, I was responsible for this and that, and we had to do this. Like using action verbs is still important in your resume. Recruiters really want to see results-oriented resumes. So that's the next topic I'd like to talk about. I would like to invite the audience to just share a comment if you want us to like translate what it is that you do into something results oriented. I think that'd be a fun challenge for us to do live. But Lindsey, like you said in one of your posts that I found, instead of saying you work well under pressure, maybe you say successfully completed multiple high pressure and schedule driven projects. Or instead of saying you work well with customers, say you have 5 years of experience interfacing with high profile clients to meet all technical production needs. So let's talk about some more ways that we can talk about like results driven resumes. Lindsey, do you have other examples right off the cuff?
Honestly, I really like to tie metrics in there as well. Maybe I'm jumping ahead of things a little bit, but instead of saying like, hey, I ran Spotlight on Fantasmic, like that's great. I successfully completed over 5,000 productions of Fantasmic, executing lighting cues in a timely and manner, upholding the artistic vision of the show. Now, that's a lot of words. We could simplify that a lot, but I think there's a way of translating those tasks into accomplishments with metrics. Metrics are huge, and Tessa can back me up on this, or tell me I'm wrong. But everything that I have found out in the industry is they people want to see measurable results because it's tangible. It's not just like, hey, Siobhan's really good at running podcasts. Siobhan's executed 50 podcasts with a multitude of industry professionals helping over 5,000 people. Which one sounds better, right? I just picked those numbers out of midair, but you see what I'm saying? Which one is something that you can grasp, and which one is kind of just an abstract idea, right?
I really love the follow spot operator example because my next question was actually going to be, how do you communicate results that aren't easy to quantify? And I think about this in rigging, right? If I'm a fall protection and rescue trainer, the idea is that you are preventing accidents from happening or if someone does take a fall and you need to rescue them, that the rescue is executed in a timely manner. But like, what if you never are in that situation? Or what if your employer's record number of accidents that occur, as far as that's concerned, is like 0? So how would
Zero?
I
0 is a great number, right? You
Yeah.
completed how many projects? Completed X amount of projects over X amount of time with 0 safety incidents. What
0
insurance
is a great
company
number.
won't love you, right? I mean, that's a huge thing. Think of how many times we celebrate. 0 is a good number when it comes to incidents like that.
Yeah.
So, I would really touch on that.
I've actually never thought of it that way, to be honest.
Yeah, that's huge.
0 is a magical number. Isn't that what the Schoolhouse of Rock song is?
Yes.
So Tessa, what are some like standout results-oriented bullet points that you've seen in your time as a hiring manager, as an HR recruiter?
Well, there's so many, it's hard to list. Let me back into it this way first. If you are having a hard time getting to a results-oriented, I want you to think about, because the goal is not to tell me what you do, but how you did it. So start there. How did I do the job differently than someone else? That's the first question that you ask to get to a better description of why you were so great. And then always think, what is my claim to fame? How do I know I did it better than the average person? How do I know I did it better? And if you can answer those questions, you can often back into a very results-oriented answer. So for example, let's say I run a community theater. Saying that I put on 12 plays and helped build community support is a real snoozer for me if I'm in the white collar world. But when I start to go, well, how do I know I did it better? Well, I was able to increase ticket revenue from 10,000 a show to 15,000 a show, which is a, blank percent increase. And I was able to do that through digital marketing, through ticket sales, through social media strategy. So that all of a sudden I go, oh, wow, like I did do something really relevant. And now I'm speaking the language of business instead of the language of another industry that helps me get that job. So I would ask those questions and then try to say, can I back into a percentage, a data point, an efficiency, a gained or revenue? Those are the ways you try and then go from the answer, how do I know I did it better, to something that's really, really powerful.
Those are really good questions to ask yourself when you are writing your resume to be results oriented. I need to do mouth exercises to stop stumbling on my words. It's not my first rodeo, but I'm no expert. So that has me thinking about acrobats that work for Cirque du Soleil. Say you're doing a performance of Ka and you're climbing up I can't even remember what that piece of scenery is called. Oh my gosh. It's like the biggest moving deck. It's like the biggest piece of automation. It's like the big turntable. Oh, I'm so ashamed right now. Anyway.
We know what you're talking about.
And
everybody else can look it up on the internet, so it's great.
And and I've worked for the guy who did the rigging for that show, so I feel especially bad right now. But so say you're an acrobat and you do a performance for Cirque du Soleil and you're moving into the corporate world. How would you communicate something that's results oriented? I guess 0 is a magic number. So sustained 0 injuries, talking about the human kinetic system and how you took care of your body.
I'd probably go after it around consistency and discipline. I would probably do some soft skills and talk about that, because if you had to put on X amount of shows on a nightly basis and you did it for X amount of time, I think that speaks to discipline. And I think you can back into that soft skill, because a lot of the things we're talking about here to pivot, if you don't have the skill sets, are calling out or finding the soft skill within the world that you performed. So that's how I would do it.
That's a good approach to it. So I would go ahead, Lindsay.
And
Oh, I think we lost. I think we lost her again. We'll remove her real quick. See if her.
She'll be back.
Yeah, she'll be back. She'll be back. I would like to invite people who are watching to ask the experts, comment your questions below. If you're watching from Facebook or YouTube, just leave a question in the comment and I get to flash it up here. Some of the questions we got. I mean, we got some really good questions so far. But now we're kind of talking about like what makes you stand out. And I do have another question for Tessa as we wait for Lindsey to come back real quick. Have you ever used behavioral assessments to help determine whether you wanted to hire a candidate or not?
I only use well, if you're talking behavioral questioning, I only use that because that's how I know that I believe a person. Anybody can tell me they can do anything. And I don't believe you till you can demonstrate it through a story or an example from your past. And then it's illustrative and then I believe you. So yes, I only use behavioral.
What's an example of a behavioral questioning?
Behavioral question would be, it's usually prefaced by, well, tell me about a time when. So if somebody says, well, one of the strengths I have is great communication, then you say, oh, wonderful. Tell me about a time when you used communication to, get something over the finish line. And then you have to actually come up with something. And that's where you really separate people and you can tell who really has the skill set and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because something that I see highlighted on what you do is that you place people where they're going to be like the best fit for them. Like you optimize, you optimize like where people are in for the sake of like the overall performance of a corporation. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means? Because obviously like that is not where I come from. I that is totally uncharted territory. And I would love to hear more about like your insights and what that's like for you.
I don't know if I have a ton of insights on it other than it is anybody who is a good interviewer can quickly call out whether somebody is good at what they do or not good at what they do just by doing that. And somebody who's listening here and wants to prepare for an interview so that they don't get caught flat-footed. Those are hard questions, right? When you say, tell me about a time when, you get a lot of, let me think about it for a minute. I tell people to prepare 3 strengths that they have. So pick 3 things, and it can be the words that we've used, like discipline or good communication, or you can actually pivot into like, I think most entertainment people could say that they are good at managing projects, project manager, even a product manager, right? You can use those terms around the roles that you've done if you've had to manage a product or an outcome, and then come up with the story that goes with that particular skill set so that you're prepared when somebody asks, because you can answer, if you have 3 skill sets that you're good at, they can ask you, tell me about a time when, tell me about your greatest strength. Tell me what your boss would say about you. Why did you apply for this job and why do you think you're a fit? What would your coworkers say your best skill sets are? I mean, and the list goes on and on. You can ask the same different question and you can answer with the same skill and the same story. And so it just helps one prepare so that you walk into an interview ready to go and having that story that goes with it so that you can answer behaviorally and it can really knock it out of the park in your interview.
Having a story is very helpful. It's a technique that I've actually utilized when I've been in interviews. So we have a question that came in. What do you say as a candidate when your soft skills are not your strongest card, such as good with tools, but not people?
Just based on that little bit, I would say that person could say, one of my strengths is I'm really good at figuring out how to put things together or how to make things work. For example, in my career, nobody else could figure out how to make this thing work. I was able to take my skill set and do that. What you can expect from me if you hire me is I'm the kind of person that's going to really dig in to the answers. And even when it is not readily apparent what to do, I'm the kind of person that digs into the details and I'm going to get it done for you. So that would be a way that I would use, based on what little I know about what tools means, how I would answer that question.
And, even if you're not good with people when it comes to customer service, think about if you are a technician, you've had to collaborate across multiple different departments. I mean, think about when you're a rigger and you've got to communicate with the lighting department, the audio department, make sure everybody's got everything in place before you raise that truss. That's cross-departmental collaboration, right? And so in that regard, you are good with people, and and you may not want to apply for a customer service job.
I would say you could say I'm tech. These are some others. They're soft/hard skills. I'm technically very savvy, and I'm able to technically understand things that are harder for other people. I'm also good at understanding downstream dependencies. I know that if you do this, then it's going to have this impact later on. I'm good at project management, so you may not be good with people, but I can manage the elements of a project. I'm very good at, let's see, what's another harder skill set? I'm good at helping people understand what's expected and how to make sure that we actually get from point A to point B. You may not be good with people, but you're good at understanding the project. So that would be another one. I'm good with operations, meaning I'm good with understanding how we can create a more efficient process. That could mean operations, or I'm really good at helping take cost out of things and figuring out where waste is. So those are just a few.
Welcome back, Lindsey. And on the note of eliminating cost and waste, think about the efficiencies of what your job entails. Like how do you do your job in a manner where you're not like going backwards and having to redo something? You're pushing forward because, the show must go on, as they say. So we're very focused on getting things done in a very timely manner within a certain scope. So, gosh, I kind of forgot where I was going with that.
I'm good at getting it done. I'm good at getting it done right the first time. That would be a skill set with that you could take in.
Yes. Sorry, that was a comment with regards to eliminating cost, right? Even if so think about if you are on a tour and you load trucks and you're telling people, that case goes there, this case goes to this truck, this goes here, 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 here. What you're doing is you're playing a game of Tetris, but you are loading the trucks efficiently so that the production uses the least amount of semis necessary. And every single semi truck is a cost for the production. So by being able to do that well, you're eliminating that cost. So Lindsey, do you have any insight on this question? Regarding we're actually just talking about some soft skills and technical skills and just some other things that we can include on the resume in general.
Something I always tell people, and my apologies, we're having a lot of wind here and it knocked out our internet. We took a power hit. So I'm back on my phone. So hopefully this works. I always tell people, think about the end goal, like going back to the Cirque reference. What's the end goal? It's for the performer to execute the cues that the director and the choreographer came up with in a consistent manner every night, because you've got things like automation. And if you don't execute those cues consistently, like Tessa said, then you are going to have safety concerns. So think about the end goal. With the truck, what's the end goal? It's to pack that truck, like you said, as efficiently as possible in as quickly a manner as possible with no safety incidents, taking up as minimal space as possible. So always think about how things translate. What's the end goal? The end goal of running a show is to execute, the script that's been written specifically for that show, the director's vision, the artistic vision from the various designers. If you're the stage manager, obviously you want to call cues as they've been designated by the designers, by the director. So think about the end goal and what you do to support it. It's not just I ran follow spot. It's so much more than that. Right? We can all take a flashlight and point it at somebody. Running a follow spot is more than that, right? And it's having the good judgment, especially when things go off the rail, to know what to do. So don't be afraid to talk about all the times you did successfully. Maybe, you can also touch upon times when things didn't go as planned and how you address them. Because a lot of times we all do the same when they go right. That's the whole point of a stage technician. And when you do our job successfully, nobody knows we're there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time when our training really comes into play is when things go wrong. And for entertainment folks, that is truly our time to shine, because push a button 1,000 times is great, but when things go wrong, it's knowing what to do. And that's one of the things where I think people really miss out on entertainment technicians, is knowing that we have those skills and the ability to work in these high pressure situations, the ability to address these issues when they come up, and without the time to just say, oh, I'll deal with that later. Because maybe somebody's safety is in play, or the safety of the audience, well-being, knowing whether to continue with a pause or it needs to stop. So touch on that as well. Think about that. Think about what you do when things go wrong, because that shows what kind of person you are, as much as the person you are, that what you do when things go right.
Yeah, and let's be honest, everybody loves talking about those stories at the bar. Everybody loves the back in the day stories, and everybody loves talking about how, everything went wrong, but then, in that adrenaline rush, you had to do this, and then you fixed the automation for the show, and you moved on to the next scene without anybody ever knowing that there was a problem in the first place, which has happened, right? It happens on shows all the time. So have those stories ready when you interview. And interviewing, top level thinking are our topics for tomorrow. So, we're going to take a deep dive into that. Have your questions ready. It's been about an hour, so we're going to start wrapping it up. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to leave a comment below. But until that happens, I would like to encourage everybody to subscribe to The Job Doctor on YouTube. Tessa's going to have a lot more content coming out pretty soon. You can please subscribe to Industry Explorers. And if you want to check out what Lindsey does, if you're thinking, do I want to hire this girl or not? Do I want to hire her? First of all, the answer is yes. Second of all, if you go to YouTube and you look up Decorating Disney Holiday Magic 2017, you'll find her at the 22-minute marker. So go watch that. Go see how much of a badass professional she is, and then hire her for your next project, because she's now officially project manager certified. And we are having no more questions coming in. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Tomorrow, we're going to be back, same time, same place. And we're going to talk about acing the interview and thinking as a top level candidate, as a top level performer. So I got one comment come in. Thank you. And here's our last question for the night. How do you deal with applying for a job that feels incongruent? That's an interesting question. I feel like the simple answer would be don't apply for the job. But at the same time, you want to look into the job description and see, what are the qualifications? What are they looking for? How do my qualifications match their qualifications? Are there any skills skills gaps that I need to repair? Which is what we talked about earlier in this segment. So Tessa, Lindsey, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure what incongruent means. If it means it doesn't feel like something I would like to do, then you probably shouldn't apply for it. If they're meaning it doesn't feel like it's exactly a match, and I have a gap, then I would say the question is, when you read the job, you need to kind of start at the beginning, and the foundational question, which is, how do the skills that I have, how could they be useful in this job? And when you can answer that question, then you can begin to build a better resume and a better interview to increase your odds of getting it. Because if you're not clear on the value proposition, I assure you the employer won't be.
If a employer is asking for 5 years of experience doing something, but you only have 4 years of experience, should you just not apply at all?
You should never lie on your resume. So I'm going to preface it with that. But if you're close, and if there's any way through the stretch of the imagination that you can hit somewhere in a reasonable arena of the experience they're asking for, then you should let yourself go forward. Yeah. So if you have 0 years of experience, you should not lie. If I'm at 4 and I think I could maybe make this other stretch, you should absolutely do it.
Absolutely.
And solve the problem that the employer has, apply. Not everybody gets anything out of 5 years of experience.
Yep, that is so true. So true.
What Siobhan learned in 5. That doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. So if you think you can solve the problem that the employer is having by applying for that job and doing that job, then apply. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Worst that's going to happen is you don't get an interview. So
yeah, exactly. Hopefully that answers the question. And again, business is like dating, and it's a two-way street. So if you are in an interview and you're everything that they're looking for, but maybe the company isn't quite what you were looking for, then it's not a match, right? So we're going to take a deeper dive into all of those topics tomorrow. So again, thank you guys so much. Please subscribe to Industry Explorers. Please subscribe to The Job Doctor on YouTube. Yeah, it was great having you, Tessa. It was great having you, Lindsey. I think we covered a ton in this hour. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. And I'm going to go ahead and ask this question in an Elmo voice. Tell me how you like your coffee.
I don't drink coffee. I take Starbucks refreshers, and I can't do Elmo.
Oh, no, that was good. Wait, do that again, but say I do Starbucks refreshers.
I do Starbucks refreshers.
That was good. I thought that was brilliant. You should pivot industries and become a voice actor. That's it.
I don't think so.
Lindsey, come on. Give us your Elmo voice. Tell us how you like your coffee.
I can't do. I watch Elmo all the time, and he annoys me because I'm that person. So, I don't even know. It's not my favorite Muppet. Okay, let's throw that out there. Now everyone.
You don't want me to ask you to tell me how you like your coffee as Cookie Monster, do you?
I was trying to think if I could do a coffee with Swedish Chef.
Oh, that's a good one.
Board. Yeah.
I love it. I like my coffee black with a little bit of milk.
That was the best one. That was the best.
Sometimes we like tea. Okay, anyway. Just had to lighten it up there. All right, guys. We will see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Thank you so much. Subscribe everywhere. And until next time, explorers, I will see you on our next adventure. Take care.